गिरिवरधारी जय गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजन यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजन रंजन यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजन यमुना तीरावनचारी हरि जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जगद्गुरु श्रीला प्रभुपदा प्रभुपदा जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्री श्रीमद अभय चरणारविंद भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी शिल प्रभुपाद की जय अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय श्रीमद् भागवत पुराण की बोल प्रेमानंदे all glories to the assembled devotees all glories to the assembled devotees all glories to the assembled devotees all glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. So, Hare Krishna everybody. Welcome this morning to the Srimad Bhagavatam discussion. There was some communication issue, so a person who was scheduled not here and I am here, so you're going to have to put up with me. Yesterday, I think does anybody remember where did we stop? Okay, so wherever we stop, Prabhuji, Gaurahari Prabhuji, you can start reading from that when I'm ready to read the purport, okay? Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Devaya Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nahistuki. So, Hare Krishna. This morning we are going to read from Srimad Bhagavad Puran, Canto 11, Chapter 3, text number 35. First half of this text was done yesterday, so we will read the second half of it. But before that, it's always auspicious to recite the verse. So we will recite few times, and then we will read the purport, and we will have the discussion. Okay? So word by word to help us pronounce it correctly and try to recite it. Okay? Shri Piplayana Uvacha Sthiti Udbhava Pralaya Hetur Ahetur Asya Yat Swapna Jagara Susuptisu Sad Bahis Cha Dehendriyasu Hridayani Charanti Yena Sanjivitani Tad Avehi Param Narendra Shri Piplayana Uvacha Siti Udbhav Pralayetur Ahetur Asya Siti Udbhav Pralaya Ahetur Asya Yat Swapna Jagra Susupti Sad Bibbahisya Dehendriyasu Hridayani Charanti Yena Sanjivitani Tad Avehi Param Narendra Shri Piplayana Uvacha Sthiti Udbhav Pralaya Hetur Ahetur Asya Yat Swapna Jagra Susupti Sutad Bahishya Dehendriyasu Hridayani Charanti Yena Sanjivitani Tad Avehi Param Narendra. Maybe some of the newer people want to try this. 2, 3 of you guys. Anyone? Shri Piplayana Uvacha Shri Piplayana Uvacha Ti Udbhav Pralaya Hetur Asya Swapna Jagati Susada Bahishya Mataji, you want to try? Yeah. Shri Piplayana Uvacha Sthiti udbhav pralaya hetura hetura asya. Yat swapna jagar susuptu sisad bahishya. Hendriyani shridayani charanti yena. Najivatani yatadave param narendra. Anybody? You want to try, Prabhuji? Shri Piplayana Uvacha. Okay, so Sri Piplayana Uvacha. Okay, so yesterday we did word by word, so we won't use our time for that today. Okay, I will read the translation and then we will read the purport. Gaura Hari Prabhu will start with that. Translation. Sri Priplayana said, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the cause of the creation, maintenance and destruction of this universe. Yet, he has no prior cause. He pervades the various states of wakefulness, dreaming, and unconscious deep sleep, and also exists beyond them. By entering the body of every living being as the Supersoul, he enlivens the body, senses, life, airs, and mental activities, and thus all the subtle and gross organs of the body begin their function. My dear King, know that personality of Godhead to be the supreme. Okay, so please read the purport now.
Although various aspects of the Absolute Truth are being described, the Absolute Truth is ultimately one. As stated in this verse, Tad avehi param narendra. King Nimi inquired about Brahman, and now this verse says, Yat swapna jagara susuptishu sad bahischa. The Lord's all-pervading feature within wakefulness, dreaming, and deep sleep, and his existence beyond these three mental states, are understood to be manifestations of Brahman, the spiritual potency of the Lord. Finally, the statement, Dehendriyasu hridayani chiranti yena sanjivatani, can be understood to refer to the Paramatma feature of the Lord. When the Lord expands himself as Kshirodakashayi Vishnu, the third of the three Vishnu features, and enters the heart of every living entity, the gross and subtle organs of the body become enlivened for continuing the chain of fruitive activity called karma.
Prabhuji. According to Srila Vishwanath.
I lost it. Last one, I don't see it. I can't find it.
Can you give me your phone?
Yeah, just give me.
Prabhuji, give him your phone.
Mine's not showing. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, the multifarious manifestations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead do not compromise his supremacy as one without a second. The absolute truth is Paramavyoma Nata, with the Lord of the spiritual sky, who appears as two-armed Shamasundara, as four-armed, as eight-armed, or as having 1,000 arms. In each aspect, his body is eternal and full of bliss and knowledge, Satchid Ananda Murti. He appears on earth as Vasudev, and within the causal ocean as Mahavishnu. He lies on the milk ocean as Kshirodakashayi Vishnu, and rescues his helpless young devotee as Nrsimhadev. Appearing as Lord Ramachandra, he acts as a perfect king, and appearing as Krishna, he steals the heart of everyone, and especially of young beautiful women. All these features of the Lord are indicated by the word Narayana. Narayana, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Narayana. Just as the word president indicates not only the official duties of the president, but his personal family life and long intimate friendships as well. According to Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. When one transcends an official understanding of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and comes to the superior status of love of God, one can understand the Lord to be Krishna, the cause of all causes. The innumerable Vishnu expansions of the Lord are also understood to be plenary portions of Sri Krishna, Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam, as the Lord himself states in Bhagavad Gita, Aham Sarvasya Prabhava. These points have been explicitly clarified in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam as well as in the opening verse, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Janmadyasya Yato Nwayad Charteshu.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So yesterday, Krishna Kripa Prabhu discussed the first part of it, and reading or glancing at the second half of the purport and what the Prabhuji read, some of the same points are being repeated and emphasized in the second part of this purport. Okay, so let's start with what was our understanding yesterday when the discussion was that Krishna is cause of all causes. Does anybody want to take a shot at it? What does that mean? Okay. Anybody else you want to? Okay. So, yeah.
I was going to say he has no cause.
I'm sorry, what?
He has no cause himself.
Oh, key word is he doesn't have any other cause. He's the cause for everything. He creates, it says in the translation, and also very important verse at the last line of the purport. Janmadi yasya. Janma adi yasya. Everything that gets created means all this material world that we see, okay? And the maintenance of it. All the living entities, or all the necessities we need or to survive or to live in this planet or this in material world, all that maintenance is provided by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay? And the destruction, when the time comes for the annihilation, or the annihilation means the destruction of this universe. Because whatever the material we see gets destroyed with the time. Okay? So whether that happens to be a living entity, or whether that happens to be all this building, or material world. At some point in time, everything gets destroyed. And that includes our quote-unquote demigod. Demigod means the administrator of this universe that's appointed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And those demigods are just like us, the jiva, but they have a higher piety, and they had done wonderful karma and devotional service in a previous life, so they got appointed as a demigod. But they are still, basically, they are jiva. And they also get annihilated, okay, when the time comes. Now, for them, the time is longer. For us as a human, our time is short, 100 years, they say, theoretically. If we are lucky, if we live 100 years, okay? But we get annihilated. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, or Absolute Truth, whatever the terminology one you use, is responsible, or has all of this creation happens, he is the cause of all of that. And there is nobody above him. For an example, it may not be a perfect example, but in any organization, you have a CEO or chairman of the board, okay? There is nobody above him, okay? He doesn't have to answer it to anybody. Yeah, that's the reason I said it's not a perfect example, because he has to answer it to the stockholders or the other people. But in a theory, as you know, if you're looking at an organization chart, in a big corporation, you see a CEO or chairman of the board sitting at the top, right? He doesn't have to answer it to anybody. Everybody else has to answer it to him. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, is the cause of all the causes, and he doesn't have any cause above him. That's the reason in the Srimad Bhagavatam Purana, very first verse, Mangalacharan, or however you want to, means auspicious beginning of the auspicious. Mangalacharan means the auspicious beginning of reading of the Holy Scriptures, okay? Very first verse, it says, Janmadiyasya, Janma, Adi, and Asya. All of these things we are seeing, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is responsible for it. He creates it and destroys it. In a part of the purport, he also talks about, in purport, he says that Durga is responsible for the destructions and of it. In a Brahm Samhita is a prayer offered by Lord Brahma at the time of creation, okay? He realizes who the Supreme is now after the creation, and when that creation happens, before the creation happens, he offers that prayer to the Lord, and in that prayer, he says all these things also. He says, okay? In the Srimad Bhagavatam Purana, there are a couple of things I'm going to quote here that gives us proof that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is Krishna, okay? Because that's what in a purport is also talked about. Krishna's to Bhagavan Swayam. Lord Brahma in the prayer, in a Brahm Samhita, in a 5.1, if you want to look it up after the class, he says, Krishna's to Bhagavan Swayam. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Srimad Bhagavatam Purana, I can't remember the text number, but it says, an answer to the question, Sukdev Goswami describes all different avatars. Avatar means when Lord appears in this material world, okay? So in a different time and a different ages, and there are different timing for it, for appearance. But there are a number of avatars Lord Krishna has taken, or Absolute Truth has taken. And after describing all of those avatars or appearances of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sukdev Goswami says, but I'm going to qualify all of these avatars. He says, Ete chams kalapumsa, Krishna's to Bhagavan Swayam. Means I described all of these, but, so but is a very important word there. It says, Ete chams kalapramsa Krishnastu Bhagavansam. Describe all of these avatars, but the most important or the prime cause for all of these is Krishna. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that is described also in a number of other places in our other Vedic literature. So he is responsible for the creation. And now in this purport also, and in a translation, it talks about creation. Okay? So how does the creation happen? And again, Krishna Kripa Prabhu briefly described that yesterday. But before we talk about the creation, why are we here in this material world? Okay? And he briefly touched on that also. Okay? We are, the Lord has three different energies. Okay? Saktis. Okay? Is a spiritual energy, material energy, and tatastha, or the neutral energy. All the living entities fall in a tatastha, or a neutral energy. Now, at some point we were in a spiritual world, but we wanted to enjoy this material world, okay? We said, why does Krishna is the only one who get to enjoy all of these? I want to be as God too. I want to go in the material world. I want to enjoy too. Why not? So Krishna, just like, young boy when finishes the high school or whatever and wants to go to college, parents know that this is probably the best place for my kids to get education and make the advancement in the material life. But, sometimes the kids are stubborn. I was stubborn too. I wanted to go into medical school and I did everything to make my father unhappy. But anyway, to fulfill what I was trying to get, point is, to fulfill my desire that I wanted to go to medical school, he agreed finally to send me out of state. Okay? In my state, I could not get in medical school, so he says, okay, stay home, we got everything. So same with the Supreme Personality of God, he says, you don't need to go to the material world. But we said, what? No, I want to go to the material world. I want to enjoy it. I want to see what it is. So being a good father, he says, okay, if that's what you want, go. But being a good father also gives us all the necessary things to maintain ourselves. And that's where the creation and the maintenance comes in. So Lord created this material world. Sometimes we think, people ask a question. If Lord does not want us to enjoy all of these, why did he put us in here? Why did he create all these things, right? If he had not created these and if he had not given all of these things, we will be okay. We'll be going back to Godhead. But he's a really good father for us. So he says, okay, son, you want to enjoy? So go. And I'll give you money to live there and go to college or do whatever, the purpose of your going is there. But keep in mind that educate yourself, study. So same way, Lord also provided us opportunity to do what? Devotional service. Worship him, think about him, so that we can go back to him. If we are in a college and we don't think about our parents, especially when we graduate, and unfortunately in a Kali Yuga that happens more often than we would like to hear about it, then when the college is finished, everything is done, boom, Maybe once a year we might call our father or our parents and say, Happy Thanksgiving, but is that really Happy Thanksgiving or Merry Christmas? No. So we might show up in the temple once in a while. Oh, I go to temple, I practice religion. What do? well, I go to every Sunday or maybe once a month on when it's special occasion. Same thing like the kid is doing, who graduated and now independent and has a job. Okay? That's what this material creation has been created for our enjoyment. At the same time, if you call it enjoyment, then worship. Think about Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that way, we can go back to Godhead, go back to our home. We always, when we come home, if you are from Texas or Houston or wherever, and if you have been out of the city or whatever, when we come back, what do we say? Oh, it's good to be back home. Don't we say that? Yeah, we always feel like, oh, I'm happy to be back home now. Because that is my natural environment. What is my natural environment really as a human being? My natural environment is in association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's where I want to be. That's where I'm going to be happy. Okay? What we need to do is what makes our soul happy, not our body happy in terms of under the influence of three modes, mode of goodness, material, and passion. Okay? We need to do what pleases the soul. We also need to do what pleases the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What pleases the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Us thinking about Him, worshiping Him, okay? Not just showing up once in a while, but really continuously doing it, okay? That is what we need to do. So that's what it means when it says creation, maintenance, and destruction. So why does it destroy? I think one might ask that question, okay? When the destruction happens, that is the material destruction, again, the soul itself. Our body is really a combination of two things. One is the soul, and the other one is a material component, okay? So when we leave this body, the soul really leaves the body. When we say he left the body, but who is the he? The soul. Soul left the body. Soul goes back. And that's what does not get destroyed. The material creation gets destroyed. Okay? But at the same time, it gets created. So how does it create it? It's wonderfully described in the purport here also. It says that at some point the Lord expands in Kshorodakshai Vishnu, and the soul or Supersoul enters in each and every body and makes all organ, specifically stated in this purport, all organs starts working. What does that mean? So, when Mahavishnu starts breathing, when it exhales, okay, the pradhan comes out. Pradhan is the unmanifested material energy, okay? The energy that we are not able to see, avyakta. And that material energy gets impregnated, just like in the material world, the human, the male and a female, creates a body of a child. Same way, in a similar way, the body of the material energy gets created by the glance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay? Briefly, quickly going through that process, then from Garbhodakshai Vishnu, the creation is the material creation, and in there the lotus flower sprouts, and the Lord Brahma appears. Lord Brahma does the penance, and Lord instructs him, Shri Radha Nila Madhav ki, instructs him to create the material world and gives him all the necessary tools. Now Brahma creates all the living entities and all the material world, 8.4 million. There are different species of life in this material world. In a 14 planetary system, by the way, when we say material world, just not the Earth planet only, but the 14 planetary system that we have, okay, creates that. But at that point, and this is the point I wanted to make, at that point, Lord Brahma says, I created these 8.4 million bodies, different living entities. We put the soul in there, but they're not moving, they're not doing anything. So what is going on here? Then Lord Vishnu says, okay, your job is done. And at that point, expands into the Kshirodakshai Vishnu and Lord himself as a Supersoul enters in each and every living entities. And at that point, just like turning the key on, in a car, when you start the key on, that's the only time engine starts working and then vehicle starts moving, right? Same way, as soon as the Supersoul enters in each and every living entity, the body starts moving. And that's what is described in the purport here clearly also. Very nice explanation here, okay? So what is the Supersoul here? That was also discussed yesterday. And the reason I'm repeating this is because the second part of the purport is almost the same thing in there, okay? So there are three ways you can realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One is the impersonal Brahman or Brahma Jyoti. What is a Brahma Jyoti? Brahma Jyoti is the effulgence or the light coming out of the body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, absolute truth, okay? So the Lord's body is constantly emanating a light from his body. Emanation is not like turning the light on. It's a natural light. The Lord doesn't have to do anything special to have that light come out from there. And some, actually in this material world today, in this age of Kali, majority of the people believe in impersonalism, that is, the Lord does not have any form, and they believe in this light, okay, this effulgence. They believe in that, the Lord's really the main swarup or the roop or the body of the Lord is really the light. And Krishna or whatever the expansions are really coming from that light when it's necessary. That's what a group of people believe. The second way to realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the Supersoul. When we talk about a Supersoul, majority of time we talk about the yogis. Yogis who meditate on a Supersoul or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They are meditating on a Supersoul that is sitting in the heart. Okay. Our Vedic literature says, why do we say heart? Our Vedic literature says that the whole soul, when it's impregnated in a material body, it stays in a heart region, okay? And the Supersoul, when that comes in there, it stays along with the soul and stays into the heart region, okay? So that's the reason the yogis, they meditate on a Supersoul that is sitting in an individual's heart. And that's how they realize, okay? You may have heard example of Dhruva Maharaj. How many of you heard of the example of Dhruva Maharaj? Okay. So, for benefit, your benefit, this Dhruva Maharaj is one of the devotees. It was a 5-year-old boy, quickly, is searching for the material kingdom. He wanted to be a king and wanted a bigger kingdom than his father had. So he does meditation. And when he does meditation, he meditates on a Supersoul that is sitting inside his heart. Ultimately, he sees the swarup or the roop or the body or human type form, four-handed form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead after the meditation. But the point here I'm trying to make is that he meditates, or the yogis meditate on the Supersoul. And that's how they realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay? And they think that that is the highest level. That's the key there. And the third way, people can, or the devotees can realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead is this root. Just like we have two-handed form, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is a two-handed form, Lord Krishna. Okay? And he lives on his planet. He has a special spiritual planet that does not get destroyed with time or any time. Okay? So he lives there. So Lord Krishna can be realized that way, or four-handed form, because that is his expansion. So these are the three ways individual can realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that's what the discussion is in this particular purport. The highest level of realization is the two-handed form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. And that's what we are worshipping, and that's what we believe. In a Gaudiya Sampradaya, in Iskcon, we worship two-handed form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead along with Srimati Radharani, because that's what we believe in. Okay? We believe highest level of this Supreme Absolute Truth is a Krishna two-handed form. Now, I'm going to stop here. I'm going to ask anybody has any question. First of all, any correction? Yes, Prabhuji, can you get? Correction, please, Prabhuji. No comment. I'm not asking for comment yet.
Well, my question is, and I'm a little distracted packing the bullets for the Harinam.
A little bit louder, please.
Yeah. My question is, did you say that you leave the spiritual world by asking Krishna to go to the material world?
Say that again.
I may not have heard that correctly.
Go ahead and finish your question, and then I'm going to ask Gora Hari to come here and...
You didn't hear. My question is, and I may have misunderstood it, did you say that when you have a desire to enjoy separate from Krishna, you ask Krishna to go to the material world? And then, therefore, he sends you there?
Okay. You're going to have to come here, ask, admit to everybody, I have a hearing issue.
He's trying to clarify what you said. He was asking if you were stating that when we wanted to come to the material world, we asked Krishna, or we told Krishna, and then he sent us here. He's asking if that's what you were explaining.
That is true. We wanted to be a little Krishna. We wanted to enjoy the material world. That is the reason we are in this material world. So just like as I was saying, being a good father, he sent us here. Okay. So let's go back to the correction. Anybody, any correction? Correction, Prabhuji, okay? And only short sentence.
Hare Krishna, thank you. Just a slight, you said that this is what we believe. That's a very powerful, it's not a question of belief, it's a question of...
Prabhuji,
what?
I don't want to hear others, just give me the question.
No, it's a correction. You said a correction, right?
I said correction.
Yeah, so I'm correcting, you said that we believe, this is what we believe, that this is the highest form of God. It's not a question of belief, it's a question of fact. This is a fact, this is not belief. You may believe something, but this is a fact. So if you use the word believe, that implies that, I may believe or not believe. This is a fact. This is science. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Prabhuji, thank you. Any other correction, please? Any question now? Realization, question, okay. Murari Valla, Prabhuji. Little louder, please.
What is the connection between life, air and soul?
Okay, Kurahari.
He says, he asked, what's the difference between the life air and the soul?
What is
The
life?
difference between the life air and the soul.
What is the life, air, and soul? Very good question. So, the soul and the supersoul are in the body, right? But the Vedic literature describes 5 types of air going back and forth. And those are the airs actually being controlled by the yogis, and that's how they meditate. Okay? One of the air is called pran, air. Okay? And that air, sometimes, the reason I said it's a very good question is because sometimes we say pran, I'm trying to translate this in English here in my mind. So sometimes people say, pran gaya means somebody died, okay? And they talk about that air being gone, okay? And that's what those differences between the 5 types of airs and pran. Any other question?
So when you're talking about the 3 ways that we realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead, you say that one is we realize through the Paramatma. The other one is the Effulgence. And then the third one, I'm not quite sure what was the third one.
Okay, very good, very good. So the first one is effulgence or the light, right? That way you can realize that impersonal Brahman means does not have any shape or any body, just like we have. Okay, we have 2 hands, 2 eyes, and so on and so forth. Okay, the Supersoul is expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, and the Supersoul is not really. I can't recall, and maybe one of the senior devotees can comment on that. Any shape or anything like that. It's just like a soul. Size of the soul in Bhagavad Gita is described, and also in other places it's described. That is, take the hair and tip of the hair, and if you divide the tip of the hair into 10,000 small pieces from that, that is the size of the soul that is sitting in the heart. And the super soul sitting in the same way in this heart. Okay? So that is the super soul realization. The third way you can realize is like it described in the Bhagavad Gita in front of the Arjuna. Okay? 2-handed form. Has 2 eyes, 2 ears, legs, and everything, just like a human being. The difference is our body deteriorates. We get old, okay, and at a certain point we die. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, with the 2-handed form, just like a human form, but he has a transcendental body. And the transcendental body does not deteriorate. He always looks like a 16-year-old young man or 20-year-old young man. Okay? On the battlefield of Kurukshetra, when he was there, he was 125 years old. Okay? But did he look like 125-year-old? Did he have a gray hair? No. Okay? I have yet to see a picture of Krishna with a gray hair or a beard. Okay? No. That means his body is spiritual, remains. In the Bhagavata, Brahma Samhita, that prayer that Lord Brahma offered, he describes his body is Navyovana. Means he is always very young, youthful person. So that is the ultimate realization of the Supreme. Okay? So that is the third one. Okay. Yes. Go ahead.
So the effulgence, I can't remember how you said that people come to the realization of the effulgence, but people come to the realization of Paramatma through yoga, meditation. And then is it bhakti, the way we come to the realization of the 2-handed form that you're speaking of? Krishna's form, or what is the process?
Okay, you're going to have to translate for me. Take the...
She was going over what you mentioned as the processes for understanding, coming to each of the stages of realization. She was trying to confirm as to what first was the process for Brahman. She said that for Supersoul realization, you said it was yoga and meditation, and then she was trying to confirm if it was bhakti. That
Okay,
is
so
the way
if
that
I
you-
understand your question correctly, you want to know what, from the impersonal, how do you get to the Supersoul?
Or like how do you realize each stage? Like what's the practice to realize
What is
Brahman?
the
What's the practice to realize?
that? Okay. So, to meditate, just like we meditate on a supreme personality of Godhead, okay? The people who believe in, say, meditating on a super soul, the yogis, they think that Lord can be realized only by meditating on the super soul. No form. Okay, there is no form. There is no form in the impersonal Brahman, in a Brahma Jyoti. When you are meditating on a Brahma Jyoti, you don't have any form. Okay? You are meditating sometime, and that's the reason sometimes when you are taking yoga, they say, oh, focus on a light. What is that light? That is that impersonal Brahman, that's Jyoti. So there is the meditating process on that one. I'm not so sure how those people who meditate, what are they looking for? But the brief knowledge that I have, talking to some people who do yoga practices, they say, you look for a light. And then they try to meditate. Like Prabhu asked a question, different type of air. Those people, they try to control the air within their body. And then they try to visualize the light in their heart. And that's how they meditate. That is the process. From what I know, okay? Maybe somebody else knows something more about it and they might want to comment on it. But the two-handed form is easy to visualize for us. And that's the reason in Bhagavad Gita, I believe in the 12th canto, Lord Krishna says, the ultimate, my highest form is my two-handed form. That is what the devotee should worship. The other form you can worship those other two types, but ultimately to realize or to gain or to get the love of Supreme Personality of Godhead, ultimate goal is to get to the two-handed form. So some yogis, depending on their meditation and association, if they are fortunate enough to have association of devotees who believe in the two-handed form, if they get that association, they are able to go to that level. But otherwise, they stay in there, all may fall down. Okay. I hope I answered your question. And I have 2 more minutes, so last question.
Okay, I was just wondering if you knew what the significance of Om is in the impersonal realization and Brahman realization. Like why they meditate on Om.
You are meditating on?
On Om. What that significance is to the
Om.
personalist conception of God.
Okay. Meditation on Om is my understanding, okay? Very limited. But Om has been practiced by the people who believe in impersonalism. Okay? Somebody might take offense to it. I shouldn't be criticizing anybody. I'm not criticizing anybody. You ask a question, that's the reason I'm responding to it. Om does not have any form. But at the same time, Vedic literature describes Om means A-U-M. Okay? And there is a detailed description of the Om word. And what does that mean and how it relates to Supreme Personality of Godhead? I don't have that much knowledge on that one.
Do you know then, because it's like Om Tat Sat.
Om?
Om Tat Sat. And so that's
Om Tat Sat.
And that's that, and my understanding
Om,
is where...
yes, in the Vedic literature, some places it says Om Tat Sat, means you are samarping, offering everything to the Supreme. That's my understanding. Radha Krishna Prabhu, you have a comment on that? Om Tat Sat.
Om Tat Sat, if you look at the, I was going to read from the Bhagavad Gita itself, so it's easy for you. Instead of the Srila Prabhupada says Om Tat Sat actually is a sound representation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna himself. So the impersonalists, they just meditate on that sound, hoping to merge into his effulgence. So that's how they do it. Whereas, let me just read what Prabhupada says, so it's easy for you. Okay. Om Tat Sat iti nirdesho brahmana strivida smrita brahmanastena vedascha yagnascha vihita pura. From the beginning of creation, the three words Om Tat Sat were used to indicate the supreme absolute truth. These three symbolic representations were used by Brahmanas while chanting the hymns of the Vedas and during sacrifices for the satisfaction of the Supreme. So those who understand the Lord has a form, they worship Him in His personal form. Those who don't accept that, they meditate on His effulgence. Because impersonalists see the highest form for them, the Lord is represented as an impersonal aspect. Whereas for personalists, for us, we see the highest form is the personal aspect. From him, Brahmano pratistaham, right? So he says, from me come the Brahman effulgence. From me also come the Supersoul. So Krishna makes it very clear in the Bhagavad Gita that he is the basis of both the Brahman and the Supersoul. So he is the origin of both. But because of lack of knowledge and understanding, some people go towards, because they are attracted to the impersonal aspect, and so they worship that. And so they see Om, which is a sound, as representing the impersonalist aspect, impersonal aspect of the Lord. Yeah. Is that okay?
Thank you. Well, maybe we can continue after the class. If you have further question, you can talk with him. Srimad Bhagavat Puran ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Bol Premanand.
You can't switch it on.